The 2023 NFL trade deadline is just around the corner, and we know as Steelers fans that GM Omar Khan loves to be aggressive and loves to make a move. So what players could they be targeting heading into the trade deadline this year? I've got 5 names I'm going to present to you guys today, but before I get into today's list, do me a favor. Make sure you click that subscribe button, because when a trade happens, we'll have you covered with a breaking news video. If it's a big enough name, we'll even go live and we'll party it up. So if you don't want to miss anything that the Steelers do before the NFL trade deadline this year, make sure you subscribe by clicking that subscribe button right now. All right, so now let's start with a couple of running backs here. Saquon Barkley from the New York Giants and Josh Jacobs from the Las Vegas Raiders. I think both of these guys are potential options, because I think if you trade for one of these guys, you have a real shot at developing an identity on offense. And let's face it, Steelers fans, right now the Steelers don't have an offensive identity whatsoever. You're not a passing team. You're not even a running team right now. You're not doing anything right. And getting a guy like Saquon or Josh Jacobs could potentially give you that identity. Now let's take a look at what Kenny Pickett has done to this point. And listen, it's not been great through 5 games, all right? We expected him to kind of be the main engine of the offense this year, coming into his second year in the league. But to this point, he's been disappointing. He looks a lot like he did last year during his rookie season. Below 60% completion percentage. He's actually graded as the least accurate quarterback in the National Football League through the first 5 weeks. Just over 1,000 yards passing in those 5 games. 5 touchdowns to 4 interceptions, and he's actually been pretty fortunate to have 3 very easy interceptions be dropped this year throughout the year. So you could actually say it's probably 5 to 7 interceptions, at least what it should be. But, you know, you also, the solution isn't with the run game either. You look at Najee Harris, the number 1 back to this point. No touchdowns to this point in the season. 63 carries for 247 yards. And look at that success rate. Only 22.2 of Najee Harris's runs are considered successful runs based on the estimated points added model. That is a sabermetric model that determines the success of runs based on the down and distance. Only 22.2% of Najee's runs to this point have been successful. Now, that's obviously not all on Najee Harris. Obviously, right, this offensive line has not been fantastic this season. But getting a guy like a Saquon Barkley or a Josh Jacobs, somebody that's been a top-tier running back in this league before and has proven himself, could absolutely establish that offensive identity that the Pittsburgh Steelers are missing. You take a look at what Saquon Barkley has been able to do this season so far. 29 carries, 114 yards, and a touchdown. A success rate of 37.8 to this point. Has done a little bit better than Najee Harris here in 2023. And then you take a look at Josh Jacobs so far this season. 51.3 successful run rate there. 82 carries for 235 yards and 2 touchdowns. Both of these guys, just plain simply, I think are just better than what Najee Harris is at this point. And both of these guys right now, Saquon and Josh, they're both on 1-year deals, and they're both unrestricted free agents in 2024. The Giants and Raiders are not particularly playing well, and I do think that the Raiders and Giants, especially if they keep losing, they're going to be willing to trade their running backs here in exchange for some draft capital. And listen, if you can get a high-end running back here in Pittsburgh, it can absolutely be the identity of your offense. When your quarterback is struggling, you know, and your defense is actually legitimately pretty darn good. That's what the Steelers' situation is right now. And when you have those two things, poor quarterback play, or at least, replacement level quarterback play, along with really good defensive play, right now the Steelers are ranking top 10 in sacks and turnovers. You can absolutely win football games with a dominant run game led by a high-end running back. And I really think that having a ground and pound, old school type of system here, although it doesn't work for everybody in the National Football League, if you've got the type of defense and the talent that you have on the defensive side of the ball that the Pittsburgh Steelers have, you can absolutely survive in this league with a high-end run game mixed with an elite defense, and that's exactly what I think the Steelers could be getting if they trade for Saquon or Josh Jacobs at this point. Now, the big question is, should the Steelers go against the grain? Let's face it, this is a passing league. In the National Football League, quarterback is absolutely king, right? Screw defense, screw the run game. If you don't have a good passing game in this league, it can be tough to survive. However, if you have a really, really good defense, a top 10 level defense, mixed with a top 10 run game, you can control the clock, you can control the line of scrimmage, and you can win football games that way. And if you can get a guy like Saquon or Josh Jacobs, two guys that have absolutely shown that they can be a dominant force in this league, you can absolutely win football games in that way, and that can be your offensive identity moving forward. So you take a look at the base salaries here for Saquon and Josh Jacobs. This would be roughly what the Steelers are taking on in their salaries for this year. Now, right now, the Steelers' current cap space sits at just under $4 million. So you'd probably have to trade a player along with some draft capital in order to make these trades work. But, man, really the big question here when it comes to these types of trades is it going to be worth the price? Because you're going to have to trade probably either Patrick Peterson or Levi Wallace, and then probably a day 2 pick, a round 2 or round 3 pick in order to get Saquon or Josh Jacobs in your building. And listen, man, given the way Kenny Pickett has started this season, given the way the run game isn't getting anything going right now, I definitely think that Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin, who kind of have an older school approach, right? I mean, they put money on the defensive side of the ball. They want to prioritize the run. They might think about going out and getting a guy like a Saquon Barkley or a Josh Jacobs here at the trade deadline to really make a splash and try to set this team up for an AFC North Division championship here in 2023. Now, if you can only pick one back here to be the franchise running back moving forward here for the black and gold, pick one for me down there in the comment section. Type SB if you'd want Saquon Barkley. If you'd want Josh Jacobs, type JJ. Or if you think we're good with Najee Harris and you want to see Najee be the franchise running back, give me an NH. This is also going to be the pinned comment on today's show. So YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. When that happens, take advantage of that time by answering today's pinned question. Now let's move on to something other than running back here. Let's go with the offensive line here with Trent Brown, the left tackle for the New England Patriots. Right tackle, left tackle, he can play both, but right now he's actually doing a really nice job for the New England Patriots. He's grading at 78.3, which is the highest of his NFL career. He's been a starting tackle in this league for a very, very long time. So listen, Dan Moore Jr., Chukwuma Okorafor, the two guys that were the slated starters for the Steelers this year just haven't played all that well. And you take a look at Chukwuma Okorafor's 2023 PFF grade, it is significantly lower than where Trent Brown is currently at 52.1. Chuck's currently ranks 59th out of 72 NFL offensive tackles. And for Dan Moore Jr., it's even worse as he is dead last in PFF grading among offensive tackles. Now, what would it take to get Trent Brown in the building? It's tough to say what Bill Belichick would want in return, but somebody that's, a bit older, somebody that, is getting towards the end of his contract here. I would say a 4th-round pick is probably fair, is probably what I would offer. If the Patriots want a day 2 pick for Trent Brown, I'm probably saying no. But if the Steelers give Bill Belichick a call and he says, hey, man, give us a 4th-round pick in exchange for Trent Brown, one of the top 10 graded offensive tackles in the game of football today, I am taking that every single day, and I am bringing Trent Brown here to the city of Pittsburgh. Now, I could actually see this one happening, potentially, depending on what Belichick wants in return for Trent Brown, and given that he even wants to trade him, right? I don't know if Bill is going to try to continue to keep winning throughout this season. Right now, the Patriots certainly don't look very good, and, I don't think Bill's really at the point in his career where he's like, yeah, let's go full-scale rebuild mode. Let's get rid of everybody. I'm not sure if Belichick is really at that point in his career where he's going to be willing to go full fire sale mode here. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see what things go down. But also here, another thing to keep in mind is that Trent Brown, if he's available on the trade block during the NFL trade deadline this year, he's going to be a hot commodity. It's not very often where a top 10 grading offensive tackle ends up going on the trade block. It just doesn't happen very often. Good offensive tackles in this league, if they're grading well, they're usually not on the market. So this is going to be a very, very hot commodity here if Belichick puts them on the market. So it's going to be interesting to see what the asking price is going to be for Brown's services. Now, before I get into some of these other trade targets, we got 2 more to cover here. Make sure you click that thumbs up icon and like today's video. We put in a ton of time, a lot of hard work to give you guys the best damn Steelers coverage for free here on YouTube. So if you appreciate that, you want to help out the channel, click that thumbs up icon right now. Now let's go to the other side of this line of scrimmage there, to the defensive line here, where Derrick Brown, the Panthers defensive tackle, top draft pick a couple of years ago. And listen, I think Derrick Brown, this is an interesting one to me because Derrick is a really, really good football player, and particularly a run defender, which we all know the Steelers need desperately. They're missing Cam Hayward a ton right now. He's going to be out for a couple more weeks with that groin injury after getting surgery. But Derrick Brown, man, I think that the Panthers are likely going to go full fire sale mode here, trying to rebuild behind Bryce Young for the future. And Brown is one of the best young defensive tackles in the game of football today. He could be an upgrade over Larry Ogunjobi, but the thing is, I really do think that Ogunjobi probably has to be a part of the deal for this to make sense, because if you have Derrick Brown in there, you've got Larry Ogunjobi, and then you got Cam Hayward coming back. It really doesn't make sense to have all three of these guys on your roster, especially because Derrick Brown is about to get paid his second contract here in the NFL. He's still currently on his rookie deal. So it doesn't really make sense to still have Larry Ogunjobi on the roster if you end up trading for Derrick Brown. So I'm including him in my trade idea here. Trade Ogunjobi and a fourth for one of the best and brightest defensive tackles in the league today. Combining Derrick Brown with Cam Hayward and Keanu Benton for the next foreseeable future, probably the next 4 or 5 years, that would be extremely awesome. However, I think this is probably unlikely, right? You look at Derrick Brown, he's still really young. He's probably going to be a foundational building block for the Carolina Panthers as they attempt to rebuild that defense there in Charlotte. So I really don't think he's going to be available via trade. And even if he were, I'm not sure if the Panthers would really be interested in a guy like Larry Ogunjobi. I think they'd probably want more of like a second-round pick, first-round pick type of compensation. And I don't think the Steelers are going to be willing to give him that. Now, up next, I still got one more trade target, and this one's kind of crazy. You're not going to want to go anywhere, but first, let's have a word from our sponsor at BetUS. Go to chatsports.com/bet and use promo code Steelers125 to get a 125% deposit bonus today on deposits of $100 to $600. So the way that this works, you put in a deposit of, say, $100 on the BetUS website, use promo code Steelers125, and they're going to give you 125% of that money. So if you put in $100, they're going to give you $125 additional dollars to use on your bets, a $225 value for just a $100 investment. I think that's a great deal if you love sports betting. So if you love sports betting, want to take advantage of this deal, go to chatsports.com/bet and use promo code Steelers125 to take advantage of this deal today. Boom! Kirk Cousins, quarterback from the Minnesota Vikings. I'm going to piss a lot of people off with this one. But listen, man, okay, just hear me out for a second. I'm not suggesting necessarily that the Steelers end up making this move. I'm not suggesting it, okay? But if you take a look at the numbers, I don't think it's even a question that Kirk Cousins would be an upgrade over Kenny Pickett. You take a look at the stats this year, unequivocally, Kirk Cousins has been so much better than Kenny Pickett. Now, yes, granted, Kirk Cousins has Justin Jefferson, arguably the best receiver in the league. Yes, granted, Kevin O'Connell, the offensive play caller there in Minnesota, knows what he's doing as an offensive play caller, whereas Kenny Pickett has to deal with Matt Canada's ass. I mean, we all know that the difference is there. But you also look at the advanced stats here. Catchable ball percentage there. You look at that. Kenny Pickett is the least accurate quarterback in the National Football League in both catchable ball percentage and then on-target percentage. He's dead last in both categories among NFL starters. And then Kirk Cousins is a lot better in both of those categories. So he's definitely more accurate. He's a lot more valuable as well. Kirk Cousins has been worth just over 31 points this year, according to points above replacement. Kenny Pickett is the least valuable quarterback through 5 weeks, a negative 11.2. Big-time throw percentage, Kenny has actually got a better big-time throw percentage than Kirk, but then the turnover-worthy plays are also higher at 2.7. Now, listen, I doubt that this actually happens, and I'm not necessarily even suggesting that the Steelers should do this, right? I think Kenny should absolutely get his shot this season. That's my opinion. I think you ride or die with him this year, and then listen, if he stinks for the rest of the season, then fine. Go out and get a veteran quarterback in free agency or via trade or from the draft, all right? But I think this is really Kenny's opportunity. You don't want to wreck with that right now. And plus, trading for a quarterback mid-season Kenny would have to learn this offense from scratch in the middle of the season, and that's extremely difficult for a quarterback to do. It's super, super hard. So I am not suggesting that the Steelers end up doing this. I've seen it thrown around on Steelers Twitter like, oh yeah, Kirk Cousins is so much better than Kenny, therefore we should trade for him. But I really don't think it's that simple. This is a game of human beings. This isn't Madden, right? It's not like you can just trade for a player and then they know the entire playbook. They have the entire playbook at their disposal and they can do whatever they want. No, that's not the way it works. Kirk would have to come here and learn everything. All right, so I just don't think that the timing is right for the Pittsburgh Steelers to get a new quarterback. If you want to go out and get a guy like Saquon Barkley or Josh Jacobs to be the identity of this offense this year as a star running back, that's a different story. I think that's possible, but getting an entirely new quarterback mid-season, I just don't think that's a viable option for the Steelers. I think it's too expensive of an option, and I don't really see it translating into success for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Should the Steelers replace Kenny Pickett this season with another quarterback via trade or Mitchell Trubisky or whatever the case may be? Should the Steelers replace Kenny Pickett? Yes or no? I'm going to answer this one with a resounding no. I think you got to give the kid his shot. And listen, if he keeps going another 5, 6, 7 games of really bad football, maybe you think about starting Mitch for the rest of the season. But overall, I want to give Kenny every opportunity to prove himself. And if he doesn't do that, address this issue at the end of the season. All right, that's going to be it for me today, guys. Really do appreciate all of your support. If you agreed with my takes, disagreed with any of my takes, let me know down there in the comment section. Let's have a discussion about it. And then also make sure you click that subscribe button so you never miss any of our free videos here on YouTube.